I'm a holder, I'm a hodler. And I don't invest in Bitcoin, I divest out of fiat money and I divest out of gold. Now, as far as 2021 goes, I said, hey, we're going to get to 220,000 per coin, which is a typical 4-year cycle. What we had in 2021 was that massive China collapse in mining and hash power. So the mining and the hash power collapsed 50%. We have since recovered that now, and we're about to hit new all-time high in hash rate. And so that's why I'm pushing my $220,000 target from 2021 to 2022. So there's really a couple of numbers to keep in mind. There's price, there's hash rate, and there's the difficulty adjustment. Those are the three things you have to keep in mind. I've always said that price lags hash rate, that hash rate precedes price. And so we're going to see new all-time highs in the hash rate and followed by new all-time highs in Bitcoin price. The underlying fundamentals have only gotten stronger. The fiat money world is crumbling. Inflation is out of control. The Bitcoin network is getting stronger. If you look at the on-chain analysis, that is to say, the people who are actually doing transactions, not derivatives, but on the actual Bitcoin blockchain, we see an increase in the holdings of Bitcoin. The recent price action is driven mostly by derivatives. So the same kind of price discovery you see in the gold market that's kept gold now flat for 10 years and hasn't really budged at all. You start to see some of the derivatives have an influence on the price discovery in Bitcoin. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because the demand for Bitcoin is virtually infinite because fiat money is, as it always does, it's going to go to zero. All fiat money goes to zero, and we'll see that with the US dollar as well. And Bitcoin is now, if you listen to guys like Bill Miller or Paul Tudor Jones or any of the other major hedge funds out there, they're now openly saying that Bitcoin competes with gold. It's going to get a market share of gold. Gold's market share is about $8, $9, $10 trillion. Bitcoin is going to eclipse that market cap at some point. So all the fundamentals are very strong. So I'm just bumping my $220,000 target from 2021 to 2022. I've been doing well for the past 10 years since I first recommended Bitcoin at $1. So nobody's really complaining. Hash rate precedes price. So hash rate is the strength of the network. It adds to the security. It's something that no altcoin or what we call shitcoins have, including Ethereum. They're all centralized and they're all vulnerable and they don't have any hash rate at all, really. Whereas Bitcoin has most of the hash rate, the overwhelming majority of the hash rate. The hash rate keeps going higher. When countries like El Salvador make Bitcoin legal tender, now my understanding is that several other countries will follow suit and make Bitcoin legal tender as well. That's another huge fundamental plus for Bitcoin going forward. The 4-year cycle, which is tied to the halving that happens every 4 years, has been a somewhat reliable predictor of price going back to the beginning of Bitcoin. I've lived through 3 90% drawdowns in Bitcoin since I first started buying it in 2011. And this particular drawdown is not particularly worrisome. It's a great buying opportunity. You know, people are always saying, oh, Bitcoin at 75,000 or 65,000 is too expensive. You know, I wish it were cheaper. Well, okay, it's cheaper. So you should be backing up the truck, loading the boat aggressively. Only have money in fiat shitcoins or gold that you're willing to lose. Any money you have in Bitcoin is unconfiscatable, it's uncensorable. That's your only wealth. That is your only wealth, is your Bitcoin wealth. Everything else is confiscatable or going to be inflated away out of existence. The network is growing rapidly and it is already about hitting a new all-time high. So it's flirting with new all-time highs as we speak already in the first few weeks of 2022. So that trend should continue because more and more miners are coming into the network because mining is a hugely profitable business. The average miner's cost per Bitcoin is under $8,000 per coin. So at these levels, it's a wildly profitable business. And you're going to see more and more countries start to mine Bitcoin. Remember, I said that I was anticipating what I call hash wars or the hash race. So right now you've got El Salvador, who's accumulating Bitcoin. They're doing Bitcoin volcano bonds. And we see a couple of other countries mining Bitcoin and adding Bitcoin to strategic reserves. I think once a country in the G7 starts to accumulate and mine Bitcoin, it'll set off like a space race that we saw in the 60s, where the Soviets put up the Sputnik satellite and it launched the space race and a man landing on the moon. I think once a G7 country comes out and says, hey, we're adding Bitcoin to our reserves, we're mining Bitcoin, then you're going to see other countries say, hey, we got to get in on this. The U.S. will come in. The U.S. will come in and start to mine Bitcoin. You've already got a lot of senators in the U.S. right now, like Cynthia Lummis. A third, as I understand it, a third of all of her contributions coming in right now are coming from Bitcoiners. And now we've got many congressmen and senators that are into Bitcoin. We've got governors into Bitcoin. You've got the mayor of Miami. Wyoming is probably going to become a Bitcoin state. Texas could very well secede from the United States and become a Bitcoin state. So this is the power of Bitcoin. It shows you what you can do with unconfiscatable, uncensorable, perfect money. You start to think differently about the world around you and the governments around you. My 2021 prediction is still the same as it was on the last day of last year, and that's 220,000 for Bitcoin in 2021. So I'm still holding to that prediction. And after, I'm using this 4-year halving cycle where you see these types of moves, and it's kind of fitting into that scenario right now. And following 2022, let's say getting into the 2023, 2024 period, at the moment, my feeling is that it might not be a great year, actually. We might see more of one of our historic pullback years that we've all... I've been through 90% corrections in Bitcoin going back to 2011. We haven't seen, those are very, very damaging, to one's spirit. But nevertheless, for 2021, though, I'm still very, very wildly bullish for 2021. I think we're now starting to see this crossover from the 200-day moving average. You're starting to see the Washington, D.C. experience has shown people that, Washington's actually powerless against this thing. Everyone is hoping, we're going to ban Bitcoin. And they all went there and they had their meetings and they had their votes and they had their sessions. And then Bitcoin, tick-tock, next block. It doesn't stop. And I think people are scratching their head like, wait a minute, you mean the U.S. government really can't stop this thing? I'm going to buy more. So we're seeing the U.S. kind of fail in its attempt to stop it. And that's bullish. And so that's going to offer a lot of price support. The Michael Saylors of the world, he is he's orange pilling trillions of dollars worth of cash on the sidelines. Michael Saylor is is got the best pitch. I'll say that. He's got the best pitch of anybody, which is great because he's got a lot of money and a lot of Bitcoin. So we've got like Ted Williams in the batter's box right now, or Gordie Howe or Wayne Gretzky or whoever you want to use. I'll use a Joe sports analogy because I know he's into sports. But, we've got the Babe Ruth of, pitching, Bitcoin pitchers, there and doing his job. And that means a lot of companies all over the world, the dominoes will fall, just like countries will fall. I think all we need is one other country to announce Bitcoin legal tender in a big way, or one major company with multi-trillion dollars on the assets balance sheet that they're going to go Bitcoin. All we need is one more in 2021, and you're going to see a 40 to 50,000 point dollar gap, in a week.
So 2030, what's the price prediction? Basically a decade from now.
Yeah, again, you get into a different kind of thinking when you look over that period, Pomp, because we're talking about a world where fiat money, as we know it, is no more, and that's a very, very different world. It's a world where you have consensus that's built into the Bitcoin protocol applied to society at large and countries in the world. That's where we're headed. So it means just a completely different world beyond the price. I think we're getting to a point, and by 2030, I think the last thing people will ever talk about when they talk about Bitcoin is the price, because they'll just be living inside the protocol, so to speak. That protocol, the genius of the incentive model, the protocol, will bring in our society. You know, we all have this kind of, not to get too metaphysical here, but we all live kind of with this common unconscious or combined, you know, the collective unconscious. That's a completely unexplored area. You know, as a human species, we're all one, but we act as if we're different and we're always in contention. Okay, put the perfect consensus protocol into the societal mix of humans and see what happens. And I think we're going to see war and violence completely weeded out of the situation. We're heading to a very loving and peaceful future. That's where we're headed, and within 10 years potentially. So all the prophets from all the ages, going back 1,000 years, who spoke about potential in these terms, they weren't wrong. But they never had Bitcoin.